You are listening to the Objects of Affection collection. Study 52, Hito Steyerl and the Phygital Counter-Strategy, Why Post-Luxury Value Resists the Poor Image. The battle for value in the 21st century is fought not in the auction house, but across invisible networks of information. Today, the singular object is threatened less by physical decay than by digital ephemera, the constant degradation and mass circulation of its image. This systemic condition, where value is measured by speed and virality, demands a profound re-evaluation of the artifact's relationship to its own representation. For the post-luxury conceptual functional art, framework, which grounds worth in permanence and singular material history, this digital crisis poses an existential challenge. How can an object maintain inalienable value when its image is infinitely and instantly devalued? This study integrates the groundbreaking critique of media theorist Hito Steyerl, specifically her analysis of the poor image and circulationism, to articulate the post-luxury conceptual functional art framework's definitive defense, the Phygital Counter-Strategy. The poor image, a low-resolution file degraded through mass sharing, represents the triumph of speed over quality, turning content into a fluid, disposable commodity. Circulationism, the ideology of this viral economy, asserts that an object's primary value lies not in its content, but in its velocity and distribution. The central thesis argues that the post-luxury conceptual functional art artifact structurally rejects this model, utilizing its high-value physical body, the singular material event, to anchor a deliberately restricted, high-fidelity digital record against informational entropy. By mandating an anti-virality strategy, post-luxury conceptual functional art positions the physical object as the unassailable referent, ensuring that the material as story principle remains sovereign over the digital flow. The poor image and the collapse of authenticity. Steyerl's concept of the poor image is the direct inheritance of the philosophical crisis surrounding authenticity, first mapped by Benjamin and Baudrillard. The poor image is defined as the bastard child of the digital file, compressed, copied, ripped, and uploaded so many times that its low resolution becomes a feature rather than a bug. It has traded quality for speed, prioritizing the flow of content over its fidelity. The value proposition of the poor image fundamentally opposes traditional notions of aesthetics and preservation. While the museum once prized the original masterpiece, the unique existence at the place where it happens to be, as Benjamin defined the aura, the digital economy celebrates the impoverished, mass-reproduced file. The poor image is an artifact of distribution, gaining value not from its material presence, but from its sheer ubiquity and the labor of its circulation, thereby completing the trajectory into the simulacrum, first diagnosed in from the aura to the simulacrum. The poor image directly undermines the concept of the singular original. It functions as a stage 4 sign, a perfect copy without an original, or a sign that hides the absence of a profound reality. The poor image is defined by the fact that its status is ephemeral, its exchange rate is high. This high exchange rate is not financial. It is social, cultural, and political, demonstrating that in the digital age, existence is proven by replaceability rather than uniqueness. For the post-luxury conceptual functional art object, this poses the risk of being reduced to a mere digital placeholder, with its unique physical history forgotten in favor of an infinitely fungible, low-fidelity thumbnail. Circulationism. When value becomes velocity, the poor image is the material artifact of a larger ideological system. Circulationism. Steyerl identifies this as a new economy of visibility, in which value is no longer determined by an artwork's inherent content, technical quality, or critical reception, but by its sheer speed and volume of distribution. In circulationism, the meaning and aesthetic merit of a work are secondary to its ability to be shared, reshared, and remixed across platforms. This prioritization of velocity, the constant, frictionless flow of images, is the digital expression of the political economy critiqued by Debord and Cholet. Debord argued that in the spectacle, life becomes mere representation and value is inverted into purely abstract values. Circulationism executes this final abstraction. The real value of human labor and singular materiality is congealed and consumed by the abstract image flow. The faster the image moves, the more effective it is at obscuring the missing mass, the vast, uncompensated labor that underpins the entire creative economy, as detailed in Debord's Spectacle meets Cholet's Missing Mass. The structural necessity for post-luxury conceptual functional art's resistance becomes clear at this point. An object defined by its moral capital, the intrinsic, non-transferable ethical commitment of the artisan, is structurally incompatible with an economy that demands its content be infinitely fungible and divorced from its material genesis. If the post-luxury conceptual functional art object were to participate fully in circulationism, its singular worth would instantly dissolve. The challenge is to leverage the visibility provided by digital networks without succumbing to the poor image model, thereby creating phygital value anchored in material non-fungibility. The Phygital Counter-Strategy, anchoring the digital flow. The post-luxury conceptual functional art framework's defense is the Phygital Counter-Strategy, a systematic approach to managing the artifact's dual existence as a physical unique entity and a controlled, high-fidelity digital record. This strategy is defined by three mandates: high-fidelity, material as story, and anti-virality. 1. High-fidelity and material as story in opposition to the poor image. The digital representation of the post-luxury conceptual functional art artifact must adhere to high fidelity. This means ensuring the archival image, video, and data accurately capture the physical object's texture, complexity, and unique condition. The digital record is treated not as a disposable copy, but as an immutable epistemological extension of the singular object, verifiable only through its link back to the physical body. This defense is secured by the principle of material as story, which mandates that the object's ethical provenance and found history supersede its market value, as outlined in the institutional pivot. The digital record, therefore, is not merely a picture. It is the public-facing biographical proof of the object's unique, irreducible event-driven history. The digital file's primary function is to document the physical object's ongoing life, use, and repair, enforcing the metaphysical position of functional endurance against the archival impulse of death. 2. Anti-virality and the refusal of circulation. The most aggressive aspect of the Phygital Counter-Strategy is anti-virality, the explicit refusal to participate in the frictionless mass circulation that defines the poor image economy. Virality, while driving visibility, is structurally antithetical to singular worth, because it requires the degradation of the original's context and fidelity to succeed. By mandating anti-virality, the post-luxury conceptual functional art artifact positions itself as a rebellious singularity, a conceptual entity that refuses to be abstracted into the digital sign-value system. The digital record is intentionally constrained, limiting distribution to high-fidelity, traceable provenance links. This transforms the object's visibility from a fleeting spectacular event into a purposeful, permanent record. The collector or institution that acquires the work is committing to this ethical restraint, thereby preserving the intrinsic value established by artisan activism, which prioritizes ideological commitment over commercial speed. Part Roman 4. Legal enforcement of singularity. The Phygital Counter-Strategy cannot be sustained by mere conceptual agreement. It must be legally enforced to resist the powerful market and institutional pressures toward commercial visibility. The structural tension between the object's need for physical uniqueness and its digital record's susceptibility to replication requires a definitive legal instrument. 1. The custodian's contract as the final anchor. The legal instrument that defends the post-luxury conceptual functional art object against digital ephemera is the custodian's contract. This contract moves beyond traditional property law, imposing a series of positive mandates on the owner, transforming possession from a privilege of ownership into a compulsory, sustained form of labor, the labor of maintenance and fidelity. This contract is the definitive legal counter-strategy against both the archival death mandate and the digital circulation mandate. As detailed in Biopolitics of the Artifact, the contract mandates the artifact's continuous care and functional use, thereby enforcing its functional endurance and resisting the institutional tendency to freeze the object in a dead historical segment. Crucially, the contract is the mechanism that legally enforces the anti-virality mandate, requiring the custodian to adhere to the rigorous digital provenance standards. Any breach of these standards, such as allowing unauthorized, low-resolution digital copies to proliferate, is a permanent, recorded failure of stewardship. 2. Digital provenance and the irreversible gaze. The final defense of phygital value is digital provenance, a permanent, immutable record secured via blockchain-based technology. This is the ultimate technological weapon against the poor image. By securely registering every critical instance of the object's functional life, ownership transfers, and most importantly, adherence to the fidelity standards of the custodian's contract, the system establishes a biographical record that is resistant to institutional tampering or narrative editing. This decentralized record reverses the power dynamic of digital surveillance. Instead of the object passively being subjected to the digital flow, its immutable record exerts an irreversible gaze upon the custodian and the institution. Any attempt to exert the institutional right to kill, thanatopolitics, through neglect or narrative erasure is permanently and publicly recorded as a failure of cultural custodianship. The digital record, therefore, acts not as a copy of the object, but as the irrefutable, unassailable witness to its sovereign material life, guaranteeing the truth of the material as story over the lie of the poor image. The aesthetics of permanent witness, the intellectual journey from the aura to the simulacrum, established the fragility of authentic value in the face of mechanical and digital abstraction. Steyerl's work exposed the poor image economy, where value accrues through frictionless, low-fidelity circulation, as the terminal stage of this crisis. The post-luxury conceptual functional art, post-luxury conceptual functional art framework is the definitive response to this crisis. By implementing the Phygital Counter-Strategy, post-luxury conceptual functional art weaponizes the singularity of the physical object against the mass fungibility of the digital world. The artifact's value is secured not by its participation in the fleeting spectacle of viral distribution, but by its uncompromising commitment to high fidelity and anti-virality. The custodian's contract provides the necessary legal and ethical anchor, compelling the object's duration and protecting its unique story. Ultimately, the post-luxury conceptual functional art object offers something the poor image never can: permanence. It is a material event that refuses to be abstracted into disposable data, guaranteeing that the depth of its story remains the highest form of worth in the 21st century media landscape. Authored by Christopher Banks, anthropologist of luxury and critical theorist. Office of Critical Theory and Curatorial Strategy, Objects of Affection Collection. This has been a study from the Objects of Affection Collection, a critical art research institution operating under the framework of post-luxury conceptual functional art. Read the full research at objectsofaffectioncollection.com.